PCE 是2003年，就是说也是从5个家庭开始啊，就是说开始成立的。它是非宗教、非政治、非盈利的一个机构。然后就像大家刚才看到这个那个 video 里面说的，就是说它是以这个 EQ parenting， 这是它的基本的理念它的宗旨就是说育儿就是育己，成长就是成功。所以它这个 EQ parenting 是一直就是说贯穿着我们这个10几年的历史。这个3要素就是第一个呢，就是说我们要有良好的亲子关系，然后我们要支持和唤醒我们的内驱力，然后第3个接受不完美。这个不是说接受孩子的不完美而是我们首先作为父母接受我们自己的不完美。这一点本身就不容易尤其是在大陆长大的。那 PCE 的活动的形式呢，就是我们每个月都有一次月会，然后呢，我们每年呢还有一次年会。我们年会之后呢，还有一个叫做 Fishbowl， 其实就是青少年他就是一帮的各种不同年龄，就是第2代的孩子们吧，他们自己设计有的是他们自己分享自己的成长经历，还有想对父母说的话。那么我们今天请到的呢是一帮young professional 就是说能够给我们带到更新的视角。那么除了这个去年我们的年会我们是请的那个 Dr. Shefali， 那么他呢因为是出身印度，他受到东方哲学的深刻的影响，然后呢他又到西方来就是说学习心理学，所以他的背景比较独特，他就是有一种东西融会贯通的这种经历，所以他去年的讲座也给我们带来了很大的影响。然后除了我们的月会和年会之外呢，就是说我们有一些对 membership 开放的，像很多的朋友就是像跟着 PCE 学习亲密之旅已经学习了2、3年了，在这个里面就是其实一整套系统都是在情商教育，怎么样就是说能够有效的处理冲突和差异，怎么样能够一致性的和孩子对话，这个包括这个最近的对话课程，这都是 for 我们的 member only 的。然后除了这个以外呢，我们还有我们的原创文章的公众号还有 Hannah 带领的这个育儿与自我成长的读书群。我们最近就是所红有一个 mini series， 就是有4期的，就是说分享的一本书叫做 Super ADD 的那个 Parenting， 其实不光是对ADD 的孩子，对正常的孩子更有用，因为理念实际上都是一样的。然后我们有10几个微信群了，现在其实总人数已经可能远不止2000了，可能都将近3000了这下面呢，就是说大家可以看一看，就是我们大概一些月会的内容。比方说，去年我们有正面管教然后就是还有就是这种跟身份认同相关的，就是说孩子在学校里如何保护自己，尤其在去年那种状态中间。然后有积极心理学的讲座有怎么样成为一个心理健康的人CBT、DBT今年就是我们有连续3个月的时间，其实都是在谈2代、2代人的身份认同和文化自信怎么样。就是说，因为我们是在这种 biculture 的环境中生长，我们既是中国人，同时又是美国人，怎么样 integrate 这2个 culture， 怎么样 build confidence 尤其是对第2代的孩子然后我们5月份的话，其实一直到现在也还在进行这个，就是说亲子好奇对话的一个课程。就是课程之后呢，还有答疑，就是说，因为我们所有人看到的这个行为都只是 iceberg， 就是表面上的，但是在水下面，其实我们有很多的内容，有我们的情绪、观点、期待，怎么样真正的连接一个人，可能光靠表面上最上层的那一层是不够的。5月份的月会就是运用这个 MBTI， 这个可能很多朋友也都知道尤其是这个大学生可能 就是它是世界上最广泛的性格测评工具啊。那怎么样运用这个工具来知己知彼？那上一次的活动呢，也是就是反应挺热烈的啊，很多的父母也都是学到哦，原来还可以通过这个，原来可以哦，我的孩子为什么和我就是说好像说话老是对不上啊？其实就是说他是因为他是一种这样的性格特质，所以他的反应方式或者是什么样，可能和你本来就不一样啊。这个如果大家要，就是说我们最后也会放一下，就是说如果大家对 PCE 的这些活动感兴趣的话，可以take a screenshot， 然后就是说把这个加入我们的远程5群啊。我们从去年搬到网上以后，现在已经这是第5个大群了。然后最后呢，就是感谢一下我们。因为 PCE 这么18年来全部都是靠 volunteer 在 run， 所以我们感谢一下下面所有的这个历年的会长啊，还有各种各样的 volunteer， 他们在这些活动中间贡献了很多的力量为了节省时间，我就不一一的念名字了这是我们的 individual donation， 然后还有我们的 sponsor， 是因为我们每年的年会都是靠这些，我们请的这些 speaker 都是非常有名的，所以都是靠这些 sponsor 来赞助然后这有这个 STEM Academy， 然后这个 A2C Academy 还有 DSC， 这是去年的还有 GL 有好几个 school 都是 Global Leaders Academy， 这个 GLA School World Youth Union在剩下的还有一些就是个人的或者是这种小的公司楼兰顾问团中宇的这种人寿保险各种财务规划这一类别的还有美国的腾氏集团，这个名单很长这个包括我们有好几个中文学校，酷中文学校，还有这个蓝天 eSchool 这些都是他们在网上的专业的那种网络学校，请的专业的老师来教大家学中文。还有我们的这个像胡志宇律师还有这个徐明这都是我们长期的 sponsor， 而且徐明还是曾经任过我们 PCE 的会长好，我就介绍到这儿，我就把这个交给 Karen， 我们今天的主持。
大家好 ，Hello，在接下来的会议中呢，我会尽量以全英文的形式呈现，然后我们就without further ado, I just start. And I want everyone to relax your shoulder first, probably move it around, and then just immerse yourself into this moment. And I want you to recall the memories in your 20s and 30s, if you're 30s already. What was that like? And did you always have a clear idea about what you want to do and who you want to be at that time? And have you ever encountered any difficulties or challenges on your personal growth journey? And I bet we all did, and that's why we're here today. And probably the biggest challenge for adolescents is figuring out who they are or who we are. And today, PCE is so honored to gather a group of amazing Asian young adults to this panel discussion. And today they will firstly share their growth journey and the struggles they have been through. They will talk about how did they overcome it? What have they learned from it? What is the next chapter in their new life? And also, for some of them, they might have struggled with, had some struggles with their parents. And how did they balance between their own expectations for themselves and their parents' expectations on them? So today we're going to discover and talk about how accepting oneself is a key element for transformation from a child or a teenager to adult. And before I introduce each of our amazing panelists, I'd like to introduce a few rules about this meeting discussion. Like, it's not a very boring one, but it's very simple. I would like to have everyone be respectful. So if you have any questions, please save your questions. We do have a Q&A section, and you can ask as many questions as you want, as long as we do have enough time. And please do not interrupt others. And if you have different thoughts and views, you can discuss with us later, and we're happy to receive your emails. So that's the rule about this discussion. I don't like this term rule, but it is a rule. Now I love to talk about our amazing panelists. So I hope you're ready. And our first, let me do this. I don't know if I can pin, or Linda, can you help me to pin them while I'm talking about the first panelist I'd like to introduce is Era, or also known as Ira.
Oh, Ira. Okay.
Or Ira. Yeah, can you pin her? So that spotlight for everyone. Okay. Actually, I feel that she looks great. So
in front of me.
Hope you don't feel embarrassed. Okay. Ira. Yeah.
So should I start?
I will introduce you. Ira was eager to become a graphic designer while pursuing a degree in business. It wasn't an easy journey, but she made it through. Now she is an excellent designer after all of those challenges. In the past 10 years, she has been on a journey of discovering herself consistently, and she learned how to make peace between who she wants to be and her parents' expectations. And she believes that getting to know herself is a lifetime endeavor. And the next one will be Robin. Should we pay everyone? Okay. And Robin graduated from university in 2016 and has been working in tech companies as a software engineer since then. And he grew up in Toronto and Shanghai before moving back to Toronto to attend the engineering program at University of Toronto. After a semester, he decided to move to New York to pursue his dream of being a writer, and ultimately he settled in the middle by deciding to write code. And the next one will be Faye, and welcome Faye Qian. I don't know how we're okay. All right, we have two people being pinned, and which is great. And Faye is a former senior associate with Boyden Global Executive Search and Leadership Consulting. During her spare time, she is an avid supporter of the United Way and Alberta's Cancer Foundation, among other charities. And Faye enjoys her global experience and leverages this for clients who have interests in diverse cultures. Amazing. And I'd like to introduce Yihan, and I'm not sure if she's here now, so.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, then no worries. Linda, can you help me to pin her? I don't know how to spot. Okay. I can't find Yihan now. So yeah.
Here.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No problem.
Okay, I'll just or we can make her being very mysterious. Everyone can just guess. How does she look like? Yeah, it's a very, very amazing woman, and she lived in multiple cities of China and US before attending Harvard in 2008 to 2012. After graduating with an economics major, she worked as a consultant for McKinsey and TGG Group, and later received an MBA from University of Chicago. And since 2019, Yihan has been working for DoorDash in San Francisco, starting as a data scientist and now a product manager. right? I guess we didn't get to find her, but everyone will get to see her later, so no worries. And our fifth panelist is Fan. Again, okay, I think I find her.
Found her. Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. And Fan was born, or Fan Zhang was born and raised in China. She received her bachelor's degree from Sun Yat-sen University, also known as Zhongshan University, and then she came to New York for the graduate school, and she is now a financial analyst in KPMG Advisory. And our sixth panelist, she's on her way, but I will just introduce this amazing person as well without showing her face. And Elizabeth Xiong, she graduated from University of Chicago with her BA in economics and MS in computer science. She is currently a strategy consultant at Accenture. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And outside of work, she enjoys hiking, traveling, and reading speculative fiction. Okay, and that's all about our panelists. And of course, these bios aren't everything about them, and they will share their wonderful stories with all of you very, very soon. And I'd love to give passes to them so that they can start to share their stories, and I will call your name so you know the order. And also, I just want our awesome audiences know that today there will be two major sections. The first part will be story sharing, and the panelists will talk about their stories. And the second section is about the story making. So all the audiences will participate and to create something, and it's going to be a poetic form activity and very interactive. And don't worry, it's for people with all writing levels, and it's very simple. I will talk about that later. So without further ado, the first amazing panelist that is going to share her story is Ira. Thank you, Fan. Okay, can I, maybe I should spotlight Ira. Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay. Let me know when I should start.
Oh, okay, you can go ahead and start now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me here. Hi everyone, my name is Ira. I'm a graphic designer and design instructor, mentor in Canada. I grew up in China and came to Canada for a master's degree at my early 20s. Self-discovery has been a continuous journey for the past 10 years, and I hope my story can be inspiring today. I'm a graphic designer who studied actually business before, and how did I get from business to design? When I was a kid, I was always attracted by graphics, and I enjoyed drawing. Last year of my high school, I told my parents I wanted to apply for an art major. But unsurprisingly, they said most parents of their generation would say to their kid is, art doesn't make enough money. They didn't know any better, nor do I. So I ended up studying a business in university as my dad wishes. So at the age of 18, I felt extremely lost. I wasn't happy with my life. There's one thing I'm certain is that I don't enjoy business. I don't want a job like that. I knew the little sparks in my heart is still there. I want to have a job that is related to art and design. However, changing major within the university at that time was not an option for me. So I decided to seek out my own path. There are so many types of jobs under the art and design industry in the world. I didn't really know what I want to be. I just felt that anything that would allow me to create stuff that is visually appealing would make me happy. So I joined a school club and I started learning Photoshop and Illustrator by myself. I made some friends. We kind of have the same type of interest. We talk and we learn from each other. I made posters, brochures, stage design, presentation design. At a certain point, I was even doing video editing, just anything visually appealing me, I would give it a try. And after 4 years, I had enough pieces, design pieces, that I can apply for a master's degree using my design portfolio, not business bachelor degree. So I still remember the day I saw this email lying in my inbox, and with just a glance, I saw 2 words, application accepted. So I had a moment of cheer, happiness, accomplishment, any good feeling you can think of. I had a moment of that, but it didn't last very long because shortly after, I felt very complicated. The biggest question in my heart is, how do I tell my parents? I know I needed financial support from the beginning, but I didn't tell them anything about it. It's not, and also this master degree is not an MBA. It's something else, something about design. To be honest, this is not the only thing I didn't tell them. I stopped sharing my life, my plan, my deep thoughts with them like long time ago, since I was a teenager. It's not that I don't want to share with them or I don't want to tell them anything. It's more of every time I try to talk, I couldn't get encouragement or understanding. Instead, I ended up feeling angry or sad. So I stopped sharing. I guess I did that to protect myself. So eventually I told my mom about this master degree. I told her it's okay if they don't want to support me. I also got a job offer from a company as a marketing graphic designer. I told my mom that. I told her I can work for several years, save money. If I still want a master's degree, I can support myself. That's not a problem. So I pretty much just laid down my future plan in front of her. And I thought she would be angry or sad or even disappointed. But she was just a bit surprised. And she said, I'm glad you made it. And in the end, my parents did support me financially to do, for me to finish my master's degree, which I'm extremely grateful for that. My relationship with my parents had always been difficult, I must say that. It felt that we will never understand each other. After my master's degree, I started to open up again. I tried to share a little bit of my life with them. It's not an easy journey, I must say that. But I tried harder this time. I didn't stop. I didn't give up. The more I talked to them, the more I realized that, and they realized this too, how different we are and how responsible I am. I'm not just talking about things I want to do without thinking about realistic factors. And after several years of talking, I started to realize several things. First, I learned to accept the fact that I will never be the kind of person my parents wanted me to be, study business and find a stable job. But I showed them that I know, I'm aware what I'm doing. I know I'm responsible to my decision. It takes time for them to understand. It takes time for us to bond, to trust each other again. I also learned that to accept who my parents are. They're also humans. They have fears. The resources and technologies I have today is way different from their generations. So it's completely normal that they may never understand my decision. And that is okay. They gave me the best they could. They have their limitations, so do I. We still have disagreement between us, but disagreement doesn't mean that we must persuade each other. We can, those disagreements can both exist and make peace between each other. So that's where I am at with my parents nowadays. I'm really happy I made the progress there. Also, I realized that I am responsible for building my own support team, and parents may not always be on the support team. Sometimes they stand on the opposite. Sometimes they're just outside. That is okay. I am glad I have never stopped to seek out for help. And I am grateful to all the kind and incredible people I have ever met. They helped me to achieve my goals, and they helped me to reach where I am today. 10 years ago, I never thought I could have a career I wanted. And now I am a professional graphic designer, and I teach other people how to make design. So today I can proudly say that I achieved my dreams, and probably a little bit more than I expected. But to be honest with you, I have been feeling that I'm lost again in the past years because I was feeling I wasn't making enough progress. I wasn't growing as much I would like to. And self-growth is a very important factor in my life to me. So I started setting new goals, but life threw me some new challenges, which I didn't expect it. I don't really know how to cope with those challenges yet to achieve my new goal, but I really look forward what the next 10 years will bring to me. So I'm still on the journey of self-discovery, and it is going to last for a long time. I know that for sure, but I look forward to the future, and that is about my story so far. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Era, for sharing this. Oh, I don't know if everyone can hear me. Thank you so much for sharing this. Oh, great. Beautiful story. And I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, so I just quickly use one term to describe your story, that is resilience. And I see that how powerful you were and still are. Like, you knew what you were aiming for, you wanted, and you went for it, and you made responsible decisions for yourself. And that is just very, very, very challenging. And I shared a lot of similar experiences, so I know how hard it could be. Thank you. And the next panelist will be Robin Huang. Thank you, Era.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I definitely relate a lot to Era's story about self-discovery and finding what you're passionate about. I think when I started applying for colleges, or I'm 26 right now, so I graduated 5 years ago. When I started applying to colleges, I think that's when I first started to seriously think about what I wanted to do with my life. And thinking back, I think it's a really hard decision to ask a high schooler to decide what they want to do with the rest of their life. Personally, I didn't have, or I had a few ideas, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But ever since, have you ever heard that advice that Steve Jobs gave, where he's like, do what you love, don't settle? Yeah, it's like a huge cliche. And I think it's very easy to take that at face value, but that's what I did. You know, I wanted to do what I loved, but I had no idea. So I did what my parents suggested I do. I applied to an engineering school. And when I got there, I think similar to Ira, I became very unhappy pretty quickly. Engineering school is very rigid. Everybody has to take the exact same classes. All the classes are pretty hard, so you have to put a lot of work in to study for those classes. Whereas I kind of thought university would be something where you can, discover different interests, take different classes. And my biggest influence in high school was my English teacher at the time. He truly loved literature and poetry, and I really loved the way that he thought about his work. So I became very interested in literature in high school. And as I was grinding through all these engineering classes, I kept going back to that passion that I had. I want to be a writer, or I want to write. I want to read more literature. So I had a moment of panic after my first semester of college, and I told my parents I wanted to study creative writing. So yeah, I remember that winter break, we're on holiday somewhere. I sat them down and I told them that I wanted to transfer schools. And I remember my mom started crying, and I think similar to Ira, like she's just saying, "Oh, you're gonna have such a hard life. You're not gonna make any money, you know." But I think as a 19-year-old, you don't really know what not having money would be like, and you know how hard working is. All you want to do is find yourself more and do what you want to do. So I transferred schools. I took a ton of writing classes, you know, lived in New York City, very creative city with a great just artistic community. And it was really fun. But after a while, I realized like writing wasn't an all-consuming passion for me either. It was something I really liked, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to write every single moment, every single day. And then I heard this quote by an acting professor at Yale, and he said, "You should only act if acting is the only thing you can do." And that really resonated with me, because depending on your profession, you know, if you choose an artistic profession and passion, you won't achieve material success unless you're within the top 0.00001% maybe. So unless it's something that you need to do, you probably won't be that good. So, you know, it's 2013, there's a ton of startups going on. My parents are both engineers, and my first semester I took this computer science class that I thought was pretty cool. And I started to realize how creative you can be with software engineering. You can create an app that millions of people will use, you know, in a month, couple months, and you can work in whatever industry you want. And I realized that it wasn't so much that I wanted to write, but I had a deep desire to create for this world. Steve Jobs was a huge influence of mine. I watched all of his commencement speeches, and this other quote that he said really resonated with me. He said, the moment you realize that everything you use in this world, you know, like look around your desk, everything on your desk that you bought was made by somebody no smarter than you. And I realized, you know, that I think that is my passion. I want to contribute to this world in some way as a creator, create useful things for people, and create things that I'm really passionate about. So, you know, it took me about a year of just trying a lot of different things, but by my second year of university, I was fully studying computer science, joining a lot of clubs, doing internships, and fast forward today, I'm a software engineer. So I think if that's your goal, to pursue something that you are passionate about, you know, be hardworking, be resilient, be brave. You will never be, you know, 21 again. And it gets much harder to pursue things that you love the older you get. It's sad but true. You just have way too many responsibilities the older you get. So, you know, that's the lesson I learned, I guess.
Thank you, Robin. I was watching, I was observing everyone's faces while you were talking, sharing your story, and I saw many people laughing while you were sharing your story. And I like how everyone's story is full of pain, tears, and also laughter. And all of these things are happen all at once. And I think that is life. And I really admire that you sincerely shared your story. And if I use one word to describe your story, that would be creativity. And not only that you use that at your work, but also that you took that to find an alternative way to pursue your dream, an alternative way to to map out your future. And I think that is a very powerful tool for anyone who is trying to navigate in their future. And I love that. Thank you so much for the share. And is there anything else? Like, I just want to let everyone know that later the panelists will raise questions for each other if they want. And I just we want it to be like a group chat, everyone to be relaxed. And then the audiences can share your questions as well. Okay. And the third panelist will be Fei Tian. Ready to share?
Yeah, thank you so much for the warm introduction, Karen. It's a great honor to be here. And thank you so much for PCE Club for the introduction. I think, first of all, I just really want to share, actually, I had a lot of things in common as Robin. Both I born and raised in Shanghai, and I also went to U of T, University of Toronto. I'm 1T3, but I hang out with a lot of engineer kids. I'm artsy. I studied double major in psychology and economics and minor in Buddhism psychology, but also I hang out with the engineering friends, and I'm playing a school orchestra and in a school night. So I can totally understand and relate to your life as engineers back then at U of T. That contributes a lot to the decision. Yeah, so a lot of kind of similar trends shared by Aaron and also Robin is I came to Canada when I was 16, 17, when I was in high school to Calgary. So right now I'm in Calgary as my first stop. So high school for me is kind of like a breathe in terms of academic, not too hard compared to what we learned back home in Shanghai. But I think at that time, I didn't have much time to explore who I am and mainly trying to fit in with the culture and learn about the culture, what it's about, and trying to integrate that. So I think at that time, I was still really malleable, doesn't have like a very solid understanding of who I am. So I think at the end of high school, I think that's also, both of you mentioned, like the major would be a major struggle with parents related who they want to be and also who I wanted to be. So I know which school I want to. I think my parents didn't have any objections towards that. But in terms of majors, and I decided to choose for my first major, I decided to choose psychology because at that time I had some life experience or with my relatives I have seen, or my cousins actually, he is a second generation CBC, Canadian born Chinese. So I have seen some of their struggles, their self-identities, and I feel like there's something that I can learn about and then try to help because there are more people like them that I can try to help, reach out to help. So psychology is something that at that time I was really passionate about. So I chose that as my major. And my parents was like, what are you gonna do with a psychology major? Because that's something that like parents, they have their own limitations. Like my mom was a teacher, my dad in business, and they don't know like what you do with a degree, right? So I think it's sometimes the objection comes from the lack of information that they have. So I kind of plan out a path for them, like this is what I need to do in the university, and then getting a master's, getting a PhD, and this is what I'm gonna do. And they still like saying, it's not too practical, you spend too much time in school, just give it another thought. And then I added another major. Good thing the university is allowed you to do double majoring, I guess, to figure out. So I think economics is my meet in the middle ground. That's to say this is something more practical, but not as much as engineering. So I did the double major. At that time, I felt at university, I felt I was learning something I'm truly passionate about, and I had really a lot of amazing teachers, especially in the psychology department. That's at the time, Jordan Peterson was still my professor at that time too. And then we did that self-authoring exercises, learn about like meditations, and a lot of that psychology is also learning about yourself and learning about others. But I just find out later, the more I deep dive into the subject, I just find the reality is pretty, but it's not for me. Because the reason why is I'm not very good, or doesn't like to write papers. I was like, if you can write something 3 sentences, why do you need to write a whole research paper on it? That kind of attitude, or just kind of that part I don't know about it, or you have to do a lot of research that's kind of repetitive, and sometimes it's boring. It's not just learning about new subjects, it's doing repetitive tasks. And then upon my graduation, it's I don't know what I do, because two of my majors, it's kind of really requires you to go further into your education, and then neither of them I want to do more to the master's degree. And before, I was just like, let me think about it, and I don't know. It's like I was completely lost at that time, and there was kind of a phrase that's also like life doesn't go as straight lines, and more like a zigzag path. So random walk takes place at every time. So that's my random walk. And upon graduating in Toronto, I went back to Calgary. So Calgary at that time, oil and gas town, was booming industry, economics really doing well, a lot of opportunities. So I came back to Calgary and find a role at the university, and then presumably all the parents would be happy their daughter to have a job with a stable job, and then not too much pressure, and then it's really stable and good for family as well. But after several years, also my life moved on to, I got married. I just found this job is not for me as well. I just deep down, I don't feel like I'm satisfied by the role. I'm not feeling being challenged at all. It just, everything is pretty much the same after a couple of years. And there's still the deep desire inside of me that I feel like I want to do more. So at that time, actually my husband and I, we kind of exploring our own interests. We did a side hustle. We started a coffee company. We roasted our own spiced coffee and then created our own brand, and then had to market it to sell that. So it's our side hustle. And actually my husband was, he is an engineer, and I am psychology and also working in the school, university. Neither of us know anything about business. Or how to run a startup, or how to try to make that work. And then I think the decision is I'm going to be the person pursuing the business degree. So that kind of pushed me move into pursuing an MBA to do focusing on entrepreneurship and also innovation. So at that time, it was a really nice, I got into a lot of startup world and working with different companies, and I got to know what they do. In the meantime, it's also if I figure out I'm probably not a very good business partner with my husband, so that also didn't work well. So my life journey is also through a lot of kind of trial and error. That just kind of try things and not giving myself a limit. Just say if I'm interested in this, go try it out to see how it works, and then if it not, learn from the mistakes and then move on. So through that journey from my MBA, I also had a child, had a baby. And then just I work really hard, push myself really hard. I think the major difference between like when I was back in Shanghai and how I'm here is I'm really taking accountability of my own decisions. That my parents are not around me. They're not here to help me to make my life decisions. And I'm the owner of my life decisions, and regardless if it's going to work or not going to work. And I think I need to make that decision for myself, and I need to take the accountability on the results as well. So I think that was the difference. It's scary. It could be scary, but also it's pushed me to mature in a way that maybe faster than if I am still with my parents in that regards. So after I graduated from the MBA degree, it just kind of an opportunity came to me that I was invited to join, as Karen said, Boyden, which is an executive search firm. So what I recently left the firm. This is another story I can share. So it was, I was helping mostly the global Fortune 500 companies to find their top executives, director levels, and up sometimes the C levels, and also board of directors as well. So I really, through that experience, I learned about different industries, different what they do, different roles, different titles, what they do. And then that role also requires me to be on the phone all the time and have a conversation with different people all the time. And one of the reasons why I chose that role is because at that time I know not being like a native English speaker that much, it's still kind of not too good in terms of my presentation skills, or this is something I want to improve on. And then it's like my bucket, and this is kind of my lower side of the bucket that I really want to improve on. So I chose that job, and a lot of good or bad things happens too. And there are kind of two things I want to share that, as Ira talked about too, that she really find a support group. So really, when you're in a university, even in high schools, and look for role models, look for the mentors, and look for sponsors that who have the path that you want to achieve your life, and then start to talk to them about their lives. Like today, we're having these sessions too, so that you can really gain a lot of insights on different ways of life, different walks of life. Your parents only have their life experience they can give you, but there's also other ways that you can give it to you too. So that was really helpful too, by just talking to different people, learn what they do, and then get an understanding, get the information you know, and make that decision. And then talk to your parents about that too. It's good a conversation fun to share with your parents. So from that job, I also learned about kind of what I'm good at, that I'm really good at, like planning operations and then helping people figure out the systems. So now a couple of weeks ago, I just left my role with Boyden, and now I'm working as a director of operations with a Vancouver startup, focusing on cryptocurrency and also investment research, also completely new, different areas that I'm pretty excited about, but also learning something new. So I guess my life journey is really not setting myself up for something, or not having too much expectation, just give it a try. But also, I think we're at a time, but I want to share just two kind of advice I learned through my journey, or through my work, through my last job as executive search recruiter. I remember I was talking to one of the candidates I work with that who shared a sentence with me that they be ambitious, don't be driven. And I was like, what's the difference between ambitious and being driven? So I didn't quite understand the difference between the two. So she explained that, so being ambitious comes from within. So I create the ambition for life that I want. And whereas being driven comes from outside, driven by money, driven by what the society thinks what you should do, driven by the promotions, or even high school peer pressures, not just coming from our own hearts. So be ambitious for yourself and don't lose what you want is something that I was constantly being reminded after that conversation. So I think that also comes to your heart, just listening to your heart, really also the foundation of it, really know yourself. There are also different ways of knowing yourself, that which we can discuss further. Another really good word of wisdom I have is live out of love, not fear. So that's kind of sometimes as a fundamental mindset change for myself, is a lot of my decisions I used to make is made out of fear, or the decisions my parents want me to do is also made of their fear of life, something that rudimentally in their own experiences. So really, if the transformation happens when you settle your life to, your goal is doing things out of love and not letting fear to prevent you from achieving and being kind, being loving our actions, and then you won't be too far off in life, I think. Yeah, so that's all from my sharing today.
Thank you, Faye. That was very informative. And I love how practical you are, concrete you are, and also not losing your ambition and all of your dreams at the same time. It's just wonderful, like how you can balance them all at the same time. And I guess this is a pattern now, but I'm sharing this term I pulled out from your story. It's Zigzag. And I love how you turn everything you have seen along the whole journey. You turn everything into your own strengths. You put them all together like puzzles, like you made your own puzzle. It's very unique, but you have your own strengths. And yeah, many of the panelists know you, like we're close friends. And Faye is just an amazing person. She has a lot of great advices. Sorry, lost my words. So excited. So, and I like how you've shared this quote. So maybe later we will ask you more, everyone to share some resources or the quotes that they like to share with their with the audiences. Maybe we can compile a file or something and send to the audiences, and so that their kids or themselves can use it as a kind of like a tool to help them to navigate the pathways besides attending this event, because I know it's quite short. We can't unpack everything in such a short time. So anyway, and the next panelist will be Yihan. And are you ready to share? Oh, and sorry, I also add our sixth panelist, Elizabeth, to here as well. Okay. I think we can't hear you, Yihan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Karen. Such inspiring stories to have followed. I found it really interesting to hear about how I think everyone's path has taken such different turns between business and graphic design and writing and engineering. I think a lot of that resonates with me, and I want to share kind of along my path how I've evolved the way that tried to evolve the way that I think about what it means to achieve things or what it means to be successful. I mean, even now, there are things that I'm good at. There are things that I'm less good at, I think, like everyone. And I remember once when I was little, I did something, I probably didn't do it so well. And I was like, oh, you know, it's okay. Like these other people, they did it even worse than I did. And at the time, my mom told me that, you know, you shouldn't compare yourself to the people who aren't as good as you. You should always compare yourself to the people who are better. And I think there's something very inspiring about that, because then you're focusing on how you can get better, how you can improve. And I think through a lot of, you know, middle school, high school, college, I would look at the people who were better than I was and look at how I could do well. And I think I was lucky enough in school that I could do pretty well at things and feel like, hey, like I've gotten to the top and I've done a good job. I think at the same time, there were things that I was less good at. And a lot of the times for me, I just chose not to do those things because I didn't want to be bad at things. I didn't want to be the person who was bad at something. And so, you know, that applied to things like sports, you know, singing, a lot of things that I might have been interested in, I was kind of scared of and chose not to do. And I think that served me okay through a lot of school. But I got to college and faced two problems that made this kind of mindset really challenging. The first one was realizing that in the world, there is always someone who is better than you are. There's always someone who's making more money. There's always someone progressing faster in their career. And so often I felt like I was just not enough. I wasn't doing good enough because I wasn't, you know, there were still so many people better than me. But the second problem was after college, I didn't really even know what better meant anymore. In school, there's the metric of grades, right? An A is better than a B is better than a C. And when you go to college, you can go look up the rankings and try to get the top ranked college, get into the top ranked college that you can. Even after college, I think I was lucky enough to say like, oh, consulting is something that a lot of people want to do. Like it's something that I thought would be interesting and fun, but you can go for the job that seems the most prestigious, and you can go for the highest ranked of the firms. But after that, then it's kind of a big open question mark. Like, what should I do after consulting? It's not so clear what is the better path. And I think what I've been trying to learn over the last couple of years is a couple of things. The first is coming out of consulting to find something that I want to do, find something that gives me a life that I can be happy with. And I think for me at least, and probably for most people, there's not just one path. There are multiple jobs, there are multiple careers that can give you happiness. And that path is something that, you know, is a little bit more holistic. I think it's important to find something that you really enjoy doing. But I think, as Robin alluded to, like sometimes just finding your passion, you know, you might have more than one passion, and there are some passions that can give you better lives in other ways. Things like money and stability and flexibility and respect, I think, to me matter, and I think matter to a lot of people. So for me, this meant after consulting, I ended up joining DoorDash as a data scientist. This was a little bit of a step sideways for me. And I think at times I struggled with like, oh, is this a less prestigious career path? Are people gonna like it less? But in the end, it turned out to be a really good choice for me because it was something that I really enjoyed doing. And it ended up being something that I was really good at. But after a while as a data scientist, I kind of looked ahead to my career and you know, looked at what my manager and my manager's manager did with their jobs, and decided that there were other things that I wanted out of my job that a career in data science wouldn't give me. Things like, you know, being able to drive problem solving on a larger scale, being able to kind of decide the direction of the company. As a data scientist, you're an advisor and a consultant, and you can have a lot of influence and leverage. But as you get more senior, you spend your time thinking about how to use data rather than how to solve the problem. And as a result of that, I decided to move into product. Again, this was a bit of a sideways move for me. And I think even now I still struggle with, was this the right move? Like, am I setting my career path back? Am I going into something that I'm, you know, less good at? Am I going into a field where there are actually more people who are better than I am? And have tried to, you know, become more okay with doing things that I'm not as good at, with kind of struggling and learning, and applying that to work and being willing to pursue a path that I think will give me things that I want. But also being okay with not necessarily being the absolute best and having people who are better than I am. I think reflecting back on the original advice to look to people who are better, I think I've shaped it in a bit and look at it in a slightly different way. I want to try to always get better, to keep learning and growing. And the people around me have a lot of strengths, and I want to look to that and learn from that. But at the same time, I try to celebrate what I'm good at, kind of, you know, pump myself up, celebrate the wins, be willing to enjoy what I've learned and accomplished, and try to surround myself with people who will help me celebrate that, but also be willing to say that to myself, kind of change the internal dialogue from like, oh, I'm not good enough, like this person is better than me at this, that person is better than me at that, and instead just tell myself about the things that I am good at and the things that I've learned and the things that I've done really well. It's an ongoing journey. I still look at people who, you know, maybe have better titles and wonder if, you know, maybe I'm not going fast enough. But at the end of the day, try my best to, you know, rather than comparing myself to the people not as good or to the people who are better than me, just focus on my own path and look to what I want to do and where I want to go.
Thank you so much, Ihan, for sharing your beautiful story and your internal struggles and the dialogues. It's very sincere, and I really admire your courage to share everything that you have said. And I say that it sounds silly that I'm giving this words to everyone, but I say that your word would be reflectiveness. And I think this is something that everyone who really want to be something in this world, to contribute to this world, they must know who they are first. So like Yihan learned about herself through all of this internal dialogues, and I am very related to what you said about always not feeling good enough, and I like how you pointed out that the feeling good enough, like celebrating for what you have achieved, does not conflict with still owning the motivation to become a better self. And I think that's a mindset that is quite important for, at least I would say that for everyone, is to realize that we celebrating who we are already won't stop us from becoming someone better, a better self. And as always, an ongoing journey. And I admire that you said this, like, this is definitely not the destination. We keep exploring, and and that's the beauty of it. And I love that. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you. And I'd like to invite Fan Fan to talk about her story as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everyone. My name is Fan. Thanks for PCE inviting me here. I feel like I have already learned a lot by listening to other panelists' story. And I feel like I see myself in Robin's story, in Faith's story, and also in Ira's story. So for me, I really just want to share two stories from myself, or the two biggest challenge in my journey to find myself or find out who the kind of person I wanted to be in the future or in my life. I feel like for a lot of people, they know who they wanted to be or what kind of job they wanted to do when they were very young. And I was never this kind of person. So the biggest challenge for me is when I entered in college. That was almost 15 years ago. I grew up in the central part of China. It was a small town. When I left my hometown and went to Guangzhou for my undergraduate study, I felt really lost. So first of all, it was a big city. Everything was new to me. And then second of all, life in college was so different comparing to high school. In my high school time, all my life is just the one goal, that is to study and get into a really good college. And I did, but everyone told me that college is beautiful, it's paradise. Once you got into a good college, you will have happy life after that. When I really got into college, I found out that was not the reality. I got really lost, and I thought I was the only one who felt really lost in that kind of culture. I was in the so-called best college in that university. So I didn't really have a better goal to pursue. So I feel like I have so many questions to be answered. I started to reading books. I read a lot of biographies and started attending so many lectures. And I finally did find the answer. So in one of the lectures I attended, it was given by a very famous educator. He was also the owner of New Oriental Education Company, so-called Xingdongfang Company. His name is Yu Minghong. So he said that if you got really lost in your life and you can't have a sense of direction, that is okay. Just make sure you are going upwards and forwards. To me, that was exactly the answer I was looking for. In my first 2 years of college, I feel like my life was a little bit dark and struggle. And what he said to me was like a guiding light for me. From that point, I felt like, oh, it is okay to be lost at certain moments. And all we need to do is embrace it, live with the uncertainty, and keep carrying on. So that was my first lesson and was my first struggle. After graduation, I came to the US for my master's degree, where I started my second biggest challenge, right? When I was in high school time, I did have interest in certain areas. I told my parents that I am really interested in psychology, very similar to faith. And also my parents said the same thing. What are you going to do with psychology? Can you make money from it? That was almost 20 years ago. And at that time, I don't think psychology was a very well-known occupation or professional. And my parents was like, all you are going to do is deal with people who have problems, mental problems. So you cannot do that. I was so young. I know something was correct with me and something was correct with my parents, but I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have the experience to explain myself. So I kind of put it away and live with it. After graduation, came to the US, everybody told me, this is a free country. You can do whatever you wanted to do. And the first thing I started to do is I looked for the psychology classes. I went to Fordham for my master's degree. And I did find an undergraduate class for psychology introduction. I started to sit in those classes and listening to, the teachers talk and talk to the students. I even went to the teacher's office hour and talked with him about my thoughts and my career decision. After I learned more about psychology and the career as a psychiatrist, I started to doubt myself. Do I want to deal with, with this kind of stressful every day? And I asked myself, and I think the answer was no. So I kind of dropped my original passion and realized that was not my real passion. What am I going to do? I was lost again. So I decided to accept it again and live with it. By that time, I was almost the second year of graduate school. I was not a US citizen. I need to find a job so I can find a job in the US with a visa. So that was a real practical challenge to me. I ended up finding a job in KPMG as a financial analyst. When I started to do the job, I tried very hard to love it. The everyday life was crunching numbers, talking to the CFOs, creating different kind of financial statement and report. I really wanted to love it. And everybody told me it was a really good job. After trying to love it for 2 years, I gave up. I just don't really like it. And because I have capacity beyond my day life, I started to take dance classes and I fell in love with dance classes. So to the side, I decided to organize the small dance group, which turned out to be a small dance studio. And after 2 years, actually after 1 year, I wanted to do something serious where I find it was really exciting and challenging to run the business as an owner. So I registered a company and turned it into a pretty successful startup company. I was doing pretty much 2 full-time jobs at the same time. One is at KPMG as a financial analyst. The other one is running my own dance company. Almost 2 years ago, I think I made that company to become the most popular dance group in the Chinese community in New York. And I gained a lot of confidence and accomplishment from that side job, not because of the money, but also because I was able to gather a group of people who are from China and who don't have a lot of friends in the US, and they can find a sense of community in that dance group. And I felt really good about it. I remember my parents questioned that a lot. They were like, you're not, being very serious for your job. You're distracted for that thing. And they think it was just they thought it was a joke. I was just having fun and it was nothing serious. About 2 years ago, I also need to make a decision whether I wanted to pursue this dance company as a career or do I wanted to go back to my KPMG life and, go to the higher ranks. because I cannot split my time anymore. Both of the two jobs becomes very challenging. And if I wanted to take one step forward, I have to focus just one, not both of them. So after thinking it very seriously, I sold that dance company to a different dancer who's a professional dancer. She took it over and take it to another next level. For me, after my experience of owning the company and sell the company, I also successfully changed my job from the corporate finance analyst to a M&A deal analyst, because I was able to handle a deal. And so far, I've been really, really enjoying doing my new job. And my lesson from my second experience really is, if you don't really know what you wanted to do in your life, that's okay, but that doesn't mean you can settle down with it. Keep looking for that sparkle in your heart. At a certain point, you will realize the dots will be connected. And then based on all of my experience, the last thing I wanted to share or my own thoughts is do the things you like the things you do. A lot of the times you may not have the perfect timing or the right resources to do the things you really wanted to do, but you can do the things well that you can do. And those will be the proven records for you to pursue your real goals. And that was my sharing. I hope it will be helpful to you.
Thank you, Fan, for your lovely story. And I guess there's a lot of people having more questions to ask you. And as I'm very curious about your story as well, I'd like to say that thank you for sharing the story. And I see one of the comments in the chat box said that he or she left this in Mandarin, so I'll translate. So everyone has different journey of growth, but I really admire that you pushed very hard and followed your heart. I don't know if this is the best translation, but I agree with this person. It's very, very touching and motivating that how you have accepted the situation, but also at the same time you kept moving and never stopped. And I think you quoted you mentioned this quote that I think Robin has mentioned as well, kind of. And I like how you both didn't take it at a face value. You use your concrete practices and actions to turn what you want into something, I don't know, like inspiring. And I think that can motivate a lot of people in the society. And I want to say that fun is such an important part of life as well. People think that you will get lost when you start to enjoy being happy. But that's a very tricky question. I guess that's very relevant to our culture as well, like how we interpret the term play fun in our culture. So, and that's a big thing. So I just leave it there and move to the next panelist, Elizabeth, sorry.
Hi, Karen. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Karen and PCE for having me. And thanks everyone for giving their stories before me. I think it's really cool to listen to everyone's really individual and unique journeys. I'm feeling a little underqualified, definitely, but I can go into a little bit of my background and just try to offer a little bit of my perspective at each step in my life, although I don't think he'll be nearly as comprehensive as some of the people before me. So yeah, I grew up in Westchester, New York, and I went to school in New York City. I went to a pretty rigorous academically high school, elementary through high school. So I was pretty, focused on academics, like some of the people before me, on college rankings, on getting into college. That was pretty much a lot of my life. I did a couple of extracurriculars. I did a lot of different sports teams, soccer to crew to skiing. lacrosse, just like a lot of different things. And this will be a common theme in my journey. I'm a very indecisive person. Another big part of growing up was in high school that my mom, she founded her own business. So she founded an online tutoring school, and it was just really inspiring to watch her really make her own way through life after I think almost a decade of being a homemaker and also being an English second language person in America. She really inspired me as a businesswoman. And just gonna give a little shameless plug. If anyone's interested in taking classes from Chinese to standardized testing, to math, to English, or even tutoring, go to blueskyeeschool.com. She's a really, I've taught a couple classes there and also helped out with part of the business. And I think it's a really great service. So after college, I went to the University of Chicago. And I think like a lot of other people mentioned, I was pretty lost too. Just to give you like a little bit of context, for example, I started off as a CS major. Then I decided I wanted to do CS and econ double major. Then I switched to econ and English double major. I did stick with that for 2 years, I think. And then I actually dropped the English major. So I stuck with the econ major, but my college offered a dual degree program. So I actually got my MS in computer science in my 4th year of college as an undergrad. So you can see there's kind of like a lot of flipping back and forth. So I was really indecisive. I think like a lot of people mentioned, I really didn't have like one specific path that I was interested in following, but at the moment I just really kind of chose what was interesting to me at the time, or I dropped what was not interesting. And I think, looking back, I probably could have paid more attention to like my bigger picture and like thought a little bit more about what the decisions would mean further along down the road, but I did not. And I think what my advice would be is that it really is fine. I think whatever you choose, I think in the end, it really is what you make of your situation. And I think like if I had decided to stay as a econ major, or if I just wanted to be an English major, like I think I could have ended up in the same position. I could have ended up somewhere else. Or I could have, done something completely different. But I think either way, I'm really happy with where I ended up. So you really just, even if you just take it one step at a time with, you're not sure where in 10 years you'll be, but between 2 decisions in the next path and your next 3 months, next year, if you just choose what feels right, I think it'll always work itself out. UChicago, I did a lot of different things across internships. So my first internship was as a data analyst intern at a fintech company. And that was really cool. That was when I was still studying CS. So it utilized a lot of that. But then the next year I wanted to try something completely different. So I went to Pepsi actually, and I went to their e-commerce team as an e-commerce strategist. So I did a month-long project as for a go-to-market strategy team for their Izzy brand. Some of you may have heard of it. It's one of their fizzy drink brands. And I really like that. It was, I think in name, it was very different from, being a data analyst, but actually a lot of it, the stuff I did, like personally, I was allowed to like make a lot of the strategic decisions around my project. And I used a lot of my data analytics skills to do that. And I think that was really fun. And that is sort of where I led to my pivot as a full-time strategy consultant at Accenture. So Accenture is a large management consulting firm. And so that's where I joined full-time afterwards. I didn't go back to any of my internships. I think I'm at slightly different places than where I thought I would ever end up each year in college. But I think I really am happy where I ended up with. And again, it's not like my one huge passion. I definitely did not think I would join consulting coming into college. And a lot of this was actually probably influenced by who my friends were in college. I had a lot of friends who were obviously joining consulting. So that definitely did not hurt my decisions. But I think in the end, consulting also is a job where you really make of it what you will, especially at Accenture. There's a lot of emphasis on you deciding your direction on where to go. So a lot of the projects I've done have been through like my personal like networking with people and cold emailing with people in areas that I'm interested in. And I've done very, very different things at Accenture. So I've done cost reduction, growth strategy, sales strategy, and like across a lot of different industries like manufacturing, healthcare, financial services. And again, it's really a good job for me because I'm really indecisive, and I don't really have like one thing I was passionate about. For example, I knew that I didn't want to like specialize in e-commerce, even though I really love my work at Pepsi and I love my team. So it really was and is a good opportunity for me to just sort of mess around and still do whatever I want basically, and just think only ahead for the near-term future. And yeah, I think one thing also after graduating is that realizing and making it very clear to people that it is just a job now. Like other people have said, a lot of academics was a lot of my life in high school and in college. And it's really cool now that I really don't have to tie my self-worth to really how I'm doing or like what my grade is or any of that. And I think it definitely is a journey to get there, but I think it's a really good mentality to have. And I've definitely experienced, I think a lot of growth after graduating because it's a very different mentality than what I had in high school and college. But yeah, so that's where I am now at Accenture.
Thank you so much. Another lovely story, and I love the openness that you have, and you seem to be quite satisfied with what life had brought to you, and I really admire how you have been mapping out your own pathway just by walking. And it's very interesting you have used this term to describe you multiple times. So you said, I'm a very indecisive person. But I would say that you're a very exploratory person because you have used all of this interdisciplinary backgrounds to help you to make this strategic decisions at your work, which really helped others with their life or their work. So I think this is amazing. So and I like what you said. I hope I quoted the right words. You said it really is what you make in your situation or out of your situation. What was that? In your situation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's what you make of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love that, and that's very inspiring. And I think for many people, we're trying so hard to know what's the right answer, but this journey itself might be making more meanings than the destination. And I'm very sorry that I feel very bad. I feel like I talk too much, and I just stop talking right now so that everyone can bring up their questions for each other. I like to invite the panelists to ask questions for each other, and then we will invite the audiences to post their questions as well. Does anyone want to start first?
One team already posted a question on the WeChat. She said, thank you so much for all the wonderful sharing. I have some questions about cultural background. Being raised by Chinese parents in US, do you experience cultural conflicts? How do you cope with the challenge? On the other hand, do you find similarities in the values, beliefs between the two cultures? Does anything rooted in your Chinese cultural background help you thrive in the Western society? Those are really, I mean, it's a long question, but you can just do one by one.
Yeah.
How about the first one? Yeah, being raised by Chinese parents in US, do you experience any cultural conflicts?
I think Faye unmuted herself. Would you like to start to share?
Oh, actually, I was just gonna say this is a very deep question. It's not easy to answer, to be honest. And actually, for the first question, I don't have parents that in States or second generation. I'm not second generation, so I'm kind of like acting as a bridge between the two cultures, between the Western cultures and Chinese cultures. Sometimes I have to bridge the gap to help them to understand. But I have more to say in terms of whether Chinese culture background would help you thrive in the Western society, because I felt this is more relevant to nowadays society anymore. But I will pass the baton to anyone else who has the parents in States to share more on their side. Yeah.
Yeah, if you, oh, okay, Robin, go ahead.
I'll take a stab at it. It's definitely a very difficult question. I think we talked a lot about how our Asian parents give us pressure academically or just in the traditional success way. But I think that demands hard work out of us, which I think in general is a very good benefit that, you know, not everybody has that pressure from their parents. So, you know, appreciate it, but don't let your parents take it too far, I guess. As for cultural pressure, like conflicts, I think, you know, with the recent anti-Asian hate, I think it's been pretty well documented, sort of like how Asians are targeted and grouped together. And, you know, as kids, like, yeah, people make fun of your eyes and like your food. I think that's all there. But I feel like what's more interesting to me now is the geopolitical conflict between US and China as a country, as a nation, which I think is going to shape our experiences as, you know, Chinese Americans or Chinese Canadians for the next couple of decades. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your thought. For oh, Yihan, do you have anything to share as well?
Maybe I can jump in as well. I think, I mean, culture is definitely a pretty broad term, and there's a lot of differences between different Chinese parents and different differences between like American parents as well. I think one thing Robin mentioned that maybe is more ubiquitous, more common, especially in Chinese American parents, is valuing hard work, kind of valuing education, like valuing continuing to strive and improve and try to get better. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And certainly there are American families that value that too, but I think it's pretty common in Chinese American families. I think one thing that's common in Chinese American families that's can be a little bit harder is I think there's also a culture of kind of like modesty and, you know, emphasizing a lot on the things that you're not good at and the things that you didn't do well, versus I think and maybe in China, like a lot of that is on the surface, but I think in the US, being able to, you know, still think about how you can do better, but also, you know, be willing to like be happy with the things that you've done well, and also kind of speak to other people about the things that you are good at, help you thrive a little bit more in Western society.
Elizabeth, what do you think? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I guess in 2 parts. One, like, yes, on a broader perspective, there's some things that I've had to deal with. I mean, I would agree with, yeah, what previous speaker said, especially at work, realizing that there's a lot of self-advocation you have to do that kind of conflicts with sort of how I was raised, with more modesty, I guess, or just not really talking about your accomplishments or achievements and letting your work stand for itself. I think, yeah, in that case, that was definitely like a process that I had to go through and understand where, the way I was raised might not be the most suited for like my job or career path. And then second, I guess, I think on a a more micro level, like interacting with my parents, I would say, no, not really a lot of cultural conflict. I think I've had very open-minded, very supportive parents who I think don't really, do put a lot of pressure on one path or a lot of pressure either way. So I think, in that respect, I may not be able to relate to others.
So you just said one thing I'm curious. You said that the culture that you have been raised modesty, like what Yihan said, is not exactly suit for your job. Means that we're not aggressive enough. That the Chinese culture, or or being too modest, or
yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that's the way I was raised. Definitely was definitely focusing again on things that you weren't good at. I think, for example, like once I was complaining to my dad about a coworker who was taking a lot of the credit for my work, or just like presenting a lot of my work to my team. And like his advice to me was, let it go. Like, in the long term, your hard work will always speak for yourself. People will always, talk about, and like people who've worked with you directly will like learn how you work hard and are a smart individual. Versus if I talk to other, some of my Asian American friends who are my age, they will commonly think that is maybe something that is more suited or something that isn't suited in our workplace currently. There's a lot of necessity to just speak up for yourself and really, not be afraid to just like grab that credit, or like to be very honest about like the work you did, the effort you put in, like what credit should be going to you.
Yeah, I just want to add. Oh, go ahead, Robin. All right, just in college, I learned this term, fake it till you make it, which I don't think my parents would ever say that to me. And when you're in school, it's hard to fake it because you have grades that, it's pretty obvious. But in the workplace or just outside of school, I think in America, it's good to take a chance on yourself by faking it so that you'd have an opportunity to grow into whatever you want to do. I think that's like one of the things you kind of have to learn more on your own with like traditional Chinese parents.
Huge +1 to fake it till you make it. I think as a kid, I used to think that grown-ups had everything figured out. And now I kind of realize that everyone's just kind of making it up as they go along. But for a super tactical example of like knowing when to be modest and when to kind of like play yourself up, it's like at work, if I'm rolling out a new product, for example, and like bumping into the CEO and they're like, how is it going? Like, I think something that would come from modesty would be, oh, there are things that could have been better. Here are 3 things that didn't go that well. And, I'm going to try to make them better. Versus I think what people who are successful do, and what is equally true and more effective, is like, hey, it went really well. Here are the metrics that it did really well on, and here's why people really loved it. And I think both are true, but focusing on like what was good about it is just, I mean, it's not like the person that you're talking to necessarily knows all the details, and they're not going to know your work well enough to actually, like, you have to do good work. If you're not doing good work, then people will find out. But if you keep telling everyone that you're doing bad work, people will believe you.
Yeah, and just to add on to it, like I just went through performance review, or I'm still going through it. And to caveat, like I think I have this really bad habit where I'll like try to like, talk about some of my achievements, but I always end up like caveating it, like, oh, like, I had a lot of help from these people, or like, oh, it wasn't actually that big of a deal. And that is something that I'm really trying to train myself out of, and just like be able to say what I did without having to walk back a little.
Yeah, I also want to add a little bit on this question. I'm not raised by Chinese parents in US, but I will become a mom in a few months. So I thought a lot about this question. What kind of parents do I want to be when my kids, come to this world and live in the US? The way I think about it is I really like how Elizabeth described her relationship with her parents is be really open-minded. To me, I came to US 10 years ago, and I still see myself as a student for a lot of the challenges at work or life here. So when my kids, really come out, I think I will grow with him, learn from him, and I hope he can also learn from me. And the ideal relationship I wanted to build is similar to what Elizabeth just described.
That's really, that's very well said, everyone. And I just want to give a little bit positive thoughts too. It's not like how Chinese culture is hindering you from your job or something, or not being able to speak up. Because my last role as an executive search, I talked to different candidates from different walks of life and backgrounds too. So I had some kind of seeing some common trends as well. Not selling ourselves enough in a more modest, or being able to articulate what you do and then understand that. But I think that's more of a surviving skills in the career, in life, that or in your professional world. That's actually a lesson. Like when you're saying it's whether it's culture or something, to thrive in a culture, in a society, first we'll know like what is the game we're playing, how do we win the game. I think no one has been like also the Chinese parents hasn't been telling us about, because they are coming here just trying to make a life for themselves, and it's not easy. As you can say, that it's not very easy, and they're not really grasping the game for the society, and then what's the winning strategy for the society. I think this is something that we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about, like how to win in the American society or the Western society, and you're not being compensated by the hard work per se. Sometimes it's also the networks, the people you know, and also what you say instead of what you do. Those are the hard reality to grasp, but that's the true reality. So we should start to talking, those are difficult conversations to talk about, but then we start to talk about more. And then to how to support each other in that sense, to develop that. And I think more and more now, even though there is kind of an anti-Asian, maybe I'm in Canada, I experience a little bit differently. I do see there's, because of the rise of power of economics value, like there's a lot of things that you still bring, like the Chinese wisdom that you can bring, you learn from your parents, and then you learn, and then you can apply to your work. It was really funny that this example I shared earlier in another work that I went to work, and I brought a book in English, The Art of War. And then my boss came to me, say, "Oh, are you reading this book?" I was like, "Yeah, I was learning that when I was in elementary school." They were just completely shocked, like how you know about strategies and you know about things. So there are Chinese wisdoms like that we can pick up from our own cultures, and we should feel proud of that. In the long run, that it's going to benefit us in this society. So I think another thing that's going to benefit, we have long-term, we're all long-term thinkers in Chinese cultures too now, like, so how to really use that to find different opportunities, being flexible. I think that's also rooted in our Chinese culture as well. That's also benefiting us from our professional life. Yeah, just want to say, just actually really being proud of who you are, and then not just the skin color, but also who you are culturally. It's going to really help you, and then make you really people see when you are proud of yourself, and then people see that, people respect you.
Thank you, Faye, for talking about how to turn our cultural values into our strengths rather than the constraints that shape our future. And I think that's a great point, and everyone else added a lot of great point of views on that, and that's great. And I kind of summarized all the questions from the audience. There are tons of amazing questions, and I realized that now we're talking more about like the cultural conflicts between the like Eurocentric culture and the Chinese culture, and I want to pull it back to our topic about the conflicts between the two generations, or like here as a question. So how did
Not hear you, Karen. It looks like her connection might have some problems. So, okay, then let's continue. So the question, Karen, are you coming back?
Yes,
we lost
yes, I'm.
For 1 second.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for this. My question, the question that I summarized from the audience was, how did you help your parents to understand your choice or the pathway that you chose? How did you bridge that gaps, those gaps? This I guess this is a very big question. What I heard, yeah.
I don't think this is the case between me and my parents, but if you give me another chance, I would do differently, because I think I completely closed myself. I didn't share anything with my parents, but I wish I did, even though they didn't understand. I guess at the back of my head, I didn't really accept the fact they think I'm childish, or they think I'm just talking without thinking too much of the reality, which I feel is not the case, but that's what they think. But if I think twice, because I didn't share enough information with them, because I didn't share my thought with them, it's normal for them to think that I'm just joking, or I'm not being serious, because I didn't talk about those deep questions with them. So I think one of the things you can do, or if you're parents, is to just keep talking with your kids, even though you don't understand it. Try harder. I think the key point is to not talk to reach to agreement. Talk to give them information. Because when I talk to them, I always want to ask them to agree with me in the end, but I get frustrated. I never get it. And that's when I stopped. I just stopped. I shut my door. I wish I didn't do it, because it takes a long time for me to gain that bond between me and my parents. Right now, it takes me almost 10 years for me to be able to share some deep thoughts again, or sharing parts of my life with them. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. I didn't do it. I hope this is a good lesson for you to learn.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a very tough journey, and we're still learning from it. There's no way that we can go back to that time, but still, like, we can do it better and next time. And before, like, I don't know if anyone else want to add on that, and I'd like to share one thing that I did with my parents when I was struggling with all my decisions. And my dad totally shut me off for 3 months. He refused to talk to me when I changed my major. And what I decided to do was to write letters to him, and also ask my friends to bring some red envelopes like during Chinese New Year to offer them. And I said, well, this is my approach to bridge the gap. I really want to talk to you. I want to see there's conversations between us, and know that maybe it takes time to arrive on an agreement, but I still just do want to talk to you and see how, like, where is it going. So that's my strategy approach. And does anyone want to share? I think this could be very helpful if there's any youth attending today's discussion. I just want to say that your parents, like, even they're critiquing your decision, it doesn't mean that they don't want to support you. It's just that they, at least from my perspective, I think it's just that they freaked out. They really want to, they really need some time to get to know you. So it's also your responsibility to help your parents to get to know your decision as well. Yeah. No, okay. If no one want to jump in, I will throw out another question from the audiences. Okay, so this is very relevant to what we just talked about. So how can parents help their kids to find their own passion, like to make their own pathway? What do you think? Like, if you are the parent, how would you like to help yourself? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, Robin, go ahead. I think that's
okay, yeah. Sorry. I feel like things that I wish my parents did a bit more was just to encourage me for things that I wasn't good at. I think, honestly, I think different people respond different ways. Like, I think I prefer to be encouraged rather than people telling me I'm bad at something and then I'll like really try to work hard at it. Yeah, you know, I feel like being encouraging and being a bit more patient. Like, I feel like a lot of people here talked about things that they were passionate about, and then they tried it and they realized they're actually not that passionate about it. So, you know, sometimes if you feel like your kid's not actually passionate or good at something, they can find out for themselves pretty fast if you let them try.
That's very well said, Robin. I think there's also maybe from the
totally agree that trust is. Is there anyone want to?
Oh, sorry, from my end, it was broke out a little bit. I was just saying, Robin's very well said that just more encouragement, less put down, encouragement for the kids to try out their things, and also. Not adding a lot of practical values in the passion. Like when parents ask you, what's your passion? What do you like to do? It's always results into something practical, right? It leads to a job, it leads to a life partner even, or something like that. That's the tangible outcomes that you can see and you can grasp, and then they feel good, make them feel good. So maybe the passions may not always like this, and you're not have that instant gratifications from the passion you pursue. Like, for example, I did like a theater in university. It was kind of for my parents, it's like passion, but then it's a waste of time where it's not resulting in the direct things you want to go, direct goals you want to achieve in life. But actually, 10 years later, I'm sitting in a board in Forest Theater just because of my experience. I had that planted a seed 10 years ago that before I didn't see it will result into something. So what is actually passion? I think it's more for parents' side to really cultivate, to help the kids, to provide opportunities. The parents can be there and also be the kids' safety net. When something doesn't work out, they should say, it's okay, come back, we're going to support you, and then try something else, right, to have that kind of mindset. And also it's also a different personalities. Each kids have different personalities. Some kids have more passions than others, and some other kids, they have they stick to one thing and they focus on that instead of having multiple passions at once. It's also really knowing your kids and see what works well for your kids, and not a lot of peer pressure comparing to other your friends' kids and something like that. And it's really knowing who your kids is and then what's best for them, and really be there to support them. That would be great.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, and just to add my 2 cents, I think, yeah, like what Faye said about not being really focused on like the practicality maybe, or like the tactical aspect of it. So for example, like in college, I mentioned I was an English and economics major for a while, and I definitely thought for a while I would actually just do English. And my parents were super supportive of that. Like they knew that I was very passionate about reading. They knew that I really enjoyed, being critical of written text. And then, like I said, I also did a U-turn at the very end of college and ended up dropping English and getting my MS and CS instead. And they actually were pretty against that. When I asked them for their advice, they thought I should stick with English and not CS, because like they knew how much I liked English and they knew how much coding stressed me out. I still enjoyed it, but it was very stressful. So like so their advice sort of didn't come out of like a practical sense for like what they were thinking about like career paths or anything, but just like what they thought suited my personality. And I think I really appreciated that kind of advice and that kind of support. And I knew that like that kind of advice and support was very open-ended. Like it wasn't about what would be like better financially or practically. It was about what they thought was better for me. And then like Ira said, I think actually that was a really good point about, communication without coming to agreement. I actually, disagreed with them and ended up doing the CS Masters against their advice. I applied for it against their advice as well. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, obviously they were very supportive. But yeah, I think just like my advice would be to really support whatever path they go and just like think of it as like whether it's a good fit for what you know of your child, like what you've learned growing up with them and like understanding what they're passionate about.
Thank you for sharing all of this great insights. Is there anyone want to add or Ira, please?
Yeah. So I want to say it's also an opportunity for parents to show a kid how something you don't know, something you are not so familiar with, how do you tackle that challenge and get through to reach where that person wants to be? Because I'm an instructor at school, but I must say I don't know everything. There's so many information out there in the world, and software changes fast, industry change fast. So sometimes when they ask me things that I don't know or they want to reach there, I will be honest with them. I said, I don't really know the answer, but would you be willing to take their journey? We find out together. So I will show them how to do the research, how to reach out to people. If they have any questions, I'll try to be there just to support whatever I can do. And if there is any blind spot of knowledge that I just don't aware, I would just try to talk to people. The resource I have, I try to reach out to them. And if I find anything insightful, I'll get back to the student. I'm not a mom yet, but I wish to be a mom one day. And that's the answer I have for now. I hope that's helpful.
That is very, very helpful. And it's very nice of all of you that like we're trying to help out all of these audiences. And I am very grateful for the great questions. And I'm just aware of time that it's already 2 hours. And maybe we don't have to do the second section, but I just wish that I can get to introduce this technique. So maybe you can explore with your kids. And this is our artistic approach. Maybe you can open up a conversation with your kids by doing it. And before we do that, maybe I can bring up one more question from the audiences, and I will, I don't know, Linda, what do you think? We have so many great questions. How should we do with it?
Yes, let's probably ask one more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will just pick one based on my personal interest. Sorry, I can't be very. How did you go through your lowest low? And when you experienced the drawback while exploring your journey, what did you do? I think this is a very great question. Of course, we will we will experience some very hard feelings when we are mapping out our personal. Yeah, Robin, sorry.
Yeah, I remember in college, I felt a lot of pressure because I transferred from a Canadian university that was much cheaper to a private US university that was very expensive. So, I tried to do a lot. I tried to take a lot of classes. And I think I developed some anxiety where before exams, I would find it like hard to breathe or something. And I just had no idea what it was. I thought I like ate something weird. And then now, of course, I realized, mental health. And I think, not just with our parents' generation, but even with our generation, there's been a lot of new knowledge about and awareness about mental health. So, but in the moment, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I think and it made me think back to when my dad would come home from work when I was a kid, and he would talk about like, wait, Tom, like, oh, my stomach hurt. And I didn't really know. I was like, why would your stomach hurt from working? And then I realized it's because like when you're anxious, your stomach tightens up. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, you kind of have to work through it, but take care of yourself along the way.
And I
Of
think,
course.
yeah, echoing to what Robin was saying, everyone has different coping mechanisms that works best for them. Playing video games is one of the coping mechanisms, and also for me, probably it goes into eating or dessert or something sweet to cope my lowest lows. I think a lot of our frustrations and comes from really the concept of the expectation gap, like where you set yourself, your expectation for you, where your surroundings, they have the expectation for you. If you don't achieve them, and then you get disappointed, that's kind of lowest lows. But really, it comes from that what we learned, loving yourself, self-compassion, and then it's come from self-acceptance as well. That's understanding you have done your best and try your best, and you have given it your all, and enjoy the process, not the results. That's really helpful. And also think of life that not all the up and downs. The downs will also help you. You learn much more in the downs than in the ups. So also just shift your mindset, thinking more positive thinking too, and then having the support system through you and your parents as well. Talk to them about share your struggles with them, and they would understand. Yeah, the more you struggle, the more connected they are with you. So it would help too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Love that. Vulnerability is definitely something, but it's not a weakness, but it's something that connects with us, with others. And I can't agree more. Like, mental health is so important. It's very important to ask for help, especially professional help, and develop this support group or like a social circle or whatever that's called around yourself to make sure that you can get through it. And also I give us advice to the audiences is that for most of our audiences are parents. And I know that it's very, very heartbreaking if your kid is experiencing something mentally very challenging. But personally speaking, I think it's also a gift. You can obtain some strengths that you can't really get from anywhere else. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit tearful, but this is a very important thing, and I wish all the audiences know. So, and then.
Yep, I totally agree with what Faye, Robin, and Karen just shared. I feel like I have so many low points in my life that I have more than just the one lowest point. I feel like a lot of them are the lowest. So, and three things I think really helped me. I think the first is develop a hobby. Either it's going to the gym or you go to dancing. For me, I think dancing really helped a lot. There was even dancing therapy in the psychiatrist word. I feel like when I started dancing, it was the time where I stressed a lot from my job. I was very new to the consulting world, and I sat in a lot of meetings with executives, and those are super stressful. So I started dancing, and it was the moment where I can, you know, totally just be myself, really enjoy the time of being myself. And also after dancing, there will be some kind of happiness in your body. And those physical happiness is connected to the mental health. So I think it's very important to develop a hobby. The second thing I learned is very important is starting meditation. I think a lot of people have the habit of meditation. I started meditation a few years ago when I was having a real struggle in life. It was more than just the study or more than just the work. It was beyond that. And doing meditation practice really helped me to better at accepting myself as who I am, and also accepting the outside challenges. Once you accept a lot of those things, and the problem will become much smaller than it used to be. The last I would say is also go to psychiatrist. I think it's a good way to talk through and also gather your thoughts, organize your thoughts. When you are talking to a psychiatrist, you might realize what the real problem is, and it will really help you, you know, reduce your stress.
Thank you so much for all the great strategies. I'm just go ahead and in the chat box, they kind of summarized it. And yeah, it's lovely. Anything, is there anyone else want to add more valuable tips to this conversation? Ira, please.
So I think one of the things I learned while getting through, or after I look back to this journey, is to accept the lowest status is gonna suck. It doesn't feel good. Just if you want to cry, cry. Don't fight with that. If you feel bad, you feel angry, it's okay. It's completely normal. We're all humans. Nobody will completely eliminate that emotion, right? It's part of us. If you want to go shout, go shout. Just don't keep it within you. One day it's gonna explode. And second is to first is to try to accept that statement and state. And second is to try talk to people you trust who may want to help you, who may have the resource. When you open up, you will be amazed like how many people they want to help you. They have the resource you may not even think of. So I that's my two things, like accept and then reach out for help. It's okay. It's okay for other people to see us. We're at the lowest point. This life is just like this. You have ups and downs.
Yeah, and I definitely want to. Sorry.
No, Liz, please go. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I definitely want to second, just being able to cry and let it all out. I think I want to talk about my experience in college that might be helpful for some of the parents in the call. And I think it was during my third year recruiting, where it was really a horrible time, where I was just getting like rejected left and right. And I think like after every like terrible rejection, I would just like call my dad crying, and like I know Robin mentioned in the chat, like hearing encouragement from your parents, like that was all he did. Like he would just say like empty platitudes, like he would tell me it's a numbers game, like just to trust in myself and stuff like that. But that was like so helpful. And it really helped me pick myself back up. And again, like you have to work through it yourself, but having that safety net, having someone being very supportive and open and not really like worrying along with me, but like trusting in me and being confident in me was really helpful. And I know there was a question in the chat at some point about like how to switch your kids' interest from like gaming into like focusing on college or whatever. And like from my personal experience is just having parents who like just trust in your kid. Like there were weeks in college where I would game, like just like not care about recruiting at all and just like really do what I wanted. But like in the end, I knew like what I had to do and I picked myself up, I worked through it. And I think not having that pressure from my parents, like them trusting me to like know that like to know what was best for me, and to like know that like, you know, my career after college is just as important as having fun during college, but also like wanting to have fun during college. And that like let me be in the right mentality to just work towards it myself, because you can't really force that kind of drive externally down on your kids.
Well said, Liz. I really like what you said. And yeah, I hope we can set, like if we have any volunteers taking the notes right now, please help us to summarize all of these great tips and advice, and so that we can send out to our audiences. And yeah, Linda, do you have anything to add on this section?
I think yeah, it's so great. It's actually very deep conversation. It's really like a adult. Like feels like you guys are so mature, and I think a lot of things you said not apply to the children, apply to us too as a parents, like being more accepting to yourself and focus on the positive things. I think this kind of positive psychology is something as parents and as adults, we also strive to learn too. So thanks a lot. And I know Karen prepared found poetry and some other things, but it's almost 10:14. So maybe.
Yeah.
It feels like we need to have another follow-up session.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe in the future, because I think what you guys shared is actually a lot of parents are deeply interested how their kids, what they think, and how they pick up majors in college. What's their life look like? Because for us, it's totally out of sight, and sometimes. Kids might want to share, or maybe share a little bit, or maybe don't share at all. But it's very, how to say that, very interesting, and also very touching to hear your personal stories and your insights. And we feel like we should really trust our kids much more, because you guys are so actually advanced, mature and advanced than what we think. Definitely than when we were at your age, like between 20s or to early 30s. So, okay, so maybe one more thing, Karen, you want to summarize a little bit, and then maybe we can have another someday, if you guys are interested, we can come back and have another session.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. Yeah, it's too bad that I have to cut this conversation. There's so many more great questions from the chat box, and I wish that we could get the time to answer every one of them. But yeah, we're running out of time, and oh yeah, I'd love to share this QR code once more. Just yeah, thank you, Jianping, for reminding me of this. So if any of you are interested in having more great conversations and maybe having suggestions for the upcoming events, you can join our group, and you will be surprised how lovely this and informative this club is. And and I'd love to wrap up very quickly, and I don't know, can I take maybe 3 minutes to quickly unpack what font poetry is, because I think maybe this could turn into an opportunity for our audiences to find out another alternative way to discuss like future or anything else with their kids. It's just a very different approach that I think could be helpful. especially in the case that you find it's very challenging to start a conversation between you and your kids, or the other way around. Okay, I'm so sorry. Just do it very quickly. So here is, I really need to look at my script as well. So sorry, turn it back on. So what is font poetry? I want you to look at this examples very quickly. So as you can see that font poetry is basically like you're taking out the words that you really find like speaking to yourself while reading through it. And it's your personal choice if you want to add more words into it. And please do not change the order of this those words, so that this kind of constraint could actually bring out more innovations, and it's very fun. And I had done this with my students, and they're very young kids, and it's very amazing how they start to share what they have never wanted to share with me before, or like they start to share some very interesting things going on in their life, and it's just very fascinating to see how it works. And I'd love to send this PowerPoint, this slide, to everyone later on. But basically, I just I found this sample text. Maybe many of you have read it before, and I found this very relevant to today's topic. It's about journey. It's about conquering, overcoming the challenges, and yeah, I just. And simply put, it's just like when you read through it, you pull out the words that really speak to you, and you can invite your kids to do that too, and you will see how you might get to share your stories that you might rarely get the chance to share by simply creating the poetry. And I just say that enjoy it. It will be surprising, and that's it. I don't want to make everyone stay too long.
Yeah, it's something we're looking forward to next time. It sounds really a lot of fun. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. I think as you guys already saw from the chat box, there are a lot of appreciation for this talk, because it is very deep and broad. So we really appreciate you guys coming to today's event and share with us your journey and your struggle, your reflection. It's we're looking forward. Sometimes you can come back again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you everyone for attending today's discussion, and hope you will see each other soon.